Look, Anthony Lima and Jason Lloyd have to hate when Coach Riesland comes on Browns Media's podcast because, sadly, he actually talks about football. It's not something that a lot of Browns media is capable of doing. And Lance Riesland, the former high school football coach, the amazing mind of football, said something very particular about Shedeur Sanders and one of his greatest strengths in the NFL.
For me, I think he attacks the middle of the field, those chunk plays from 15 to 25 yards. I think he throws the ball extremely well.
He threw it right between two linebackers, right over a closing safety, and for 1 second, every analyst in that press box just stopped talking. That's the moment nobody wants to admit happened, because if you admit it, you have to admit something else too. That the kid everybody said couldn't push the ball down the field, couldn't win the tight window, couldn't handle the middle of an NFL defense, just did exactly that on his first career start, under pressure, while getting hit. This is the story of Shedeur Sanders, and the one thing about his game that keeps forcing people who used to doubt him to sit back and go quiet. Because here's the truth. For months, the noise around Shedeur Sanders wasn't about his arm. It was about his attitude, his draft slide, his father, his confidence, his mouth, everything except the actual football. And somewhere in all of that noise, something got buried. Something that coaches who actually study tape keep bringing up, almost like they're annoyed they have to explain it at all. Shedeur Sanders can throw the ball between the hashes as well as almost anybody in this league right now. Not just outside, where the throws are safer, where the windows are bigger, where young quarterbacks like to live because it's easier. The middle of the field, the part of the field where linebackers sit in wait to end careers, where safeties close fast, where a split second of hesitation gets you a highlight reel you don't want to be in. That's where Shedeur has quietly been at his best. And that's not an opinion. That's on the stat sheet.
Well, which is so important in the NFL, especially in this Todd Monken offense, which is trying to find space. And a lot of times in the NFL, these corners are locked down. These corners are elite athletes, so you got to be able to work the middle of the field. That's what I think, since he's gotten here, he's done a great job of. If you talk about in this offense, if you go back to what Monken has done with the Ravens, going back to what he did in Georgia, Monken loves to attack the middle of the field, and that's what Shedeur does at a very, very high level. He anticipates very well. He's very accurate.
In his rookie season, Shedeur Sanders averaged 11 yards per attempt into the intermediate part of the field, the second highest mark of any qualifying quarterback in the league, trailing only a veteran named Jared Goff. Not trailing rookies, not trailing game managers, trailing one of the most efficient passers in football by half a yard. Sit with that for a second, because that's not a small thing to bury under headlines about attitude and drama. Now, here's where the story gets interesting, because it wasn't just the rookie tape. People close to the team, coaches who actually break down film for a living instead of guessing off vibes, started noticing something at training camp. Shedeur wasn't just surviving in that intermediate range. He was hunting it, attacking it on purpose, like he knew exactly what he needed to prove and exactly who needed to see it. One rep in particular, a linebacker clogging the window, a corner draped over the receiver's outside hip, a safety flying in from depth to close the gap. Every rational read in that situation says, throw it away, live for the next play. Don't be a hero. Shedeur didn't blink. He put the ball over the top of all three defenders into a window that had no business being open, and it landed in stride. Coaches on the sideline don't react to normal throws like that. They reacted to that one. And that wasn't even the only rep. Later in the same practice, blitzed hard, no time, no clean pocket, he still got the ball out with velocity into that same dangerous middle ground, hitting a receiver in stride for what would have been a house call in a real game. That's not accuracy alone. That's decisiveness under duress. The kind teams either have or don't have at the quarterback position, and it can't really be coached into someone who doesn't already have the nerve for it. So now here's the part where the numbers back up what the eyes were seeing. When you put Shedeur's intermediate and middle of the field passing profile next to two of the most talked about young arms in the league, the picture isn't what a lot of national narratives want it to be. His completion rate on target in that middle third sits right in that same tier as the names getting all the offseason praise, not behind by some embarrassing gap, in the conversation, sometimes ahead of it.
We have to understand that from the baseline and what Shedeur did in 2025, right? Again, there's so many people have a lot of negative to say, right? But a really good positive you could say is Shedeur Sanders actually averaged 11 yards per attempt when targeting in breaking routes this season, which would rank second amongst qualifying quarterbacks behind only Jared Goff at 11.5, right? So, when you hear certain veterans of the game speak about Shedeur, and I always bring this up,
And it's not just clean pocket on-platform throws either. Look at what happens when he's forced off-platform, rolling out, resetting his feet, throwing from a bad angle because the play broke down. The efficiency holds up. It doesn't collapse. For a quarterback who got labeled, fairly or not, as someone without great mobility or improvisation skills, that's the exact opposite of what the doubters expected to find on tape. So why doesn't anybody talk about this? That's the uncomfortable question a lot of Browns fans have started asking out loud, because for as much airtime as gets spent debating Shedeur's confidence, his press conferences, his family, his rookie missteps, almost none of it gets spent on the fact that the actual quarterbacking, the part that wins or loses football games, has quietly been ahead of schedule. It's like an entire media cycle built a narrative before the tape was ever seriously studied, and now nobody wants to be the one to say they got it wrong. Now, let's be fair here, because this isn't a highlight reel with no rough edges. There were drops, there were miscommunications with receivers still building chemistry with him, there was at least one interception that had fans wincing through their fingers. Nobody's pretending Shedeur Sanders is a finished product. He's not. He's a young quarterback still figuring out an NFL offense, still building trust with new teammates, still adjusting to a level of speed and disguise he never saw in college. But here's what makes this story different from the typical rookie hype story. It's not blind belief. It's not fans refusing to see flaws. It's coaches, actual football minds who study tape for a living, pointing at a specific trait and saying, this is real, this is valuable, and this is going to matter. Because in today's NFL, the middle of the field is everything. Defenses are built to take away the easy stuff on the perimeter. They dare young quarterbacks to live outside the numbers, where the throws look pretty but rarely move the chains against elite competition. The quarterbacks who actually win in this league, the ones changing arm angles under pressure, the ones threading it between the numbers instead of around them, those are the ones offensive coordinators build entire systems around. That's exactly the identity this Cleveland offense has shown it wants to run. And that's exactly where Shedeur has shown, again and again, that he belongs.
Thing here, and I want to show you two things here, right? I want to show you him hitting Cedric Tillman. Geez, you talk about fearlessness, man. You talk about stressing those balls out there. Wow, that. Oh wow, oh no.
Hey yo.
Wrong thing. I want to show you something, right? I want to watch as this linebacker, right? This linebacker starts muddying up this window. Look at this corner on this outside hip.
Now here's where the tension really builds, because none of this happens in a vacuum. There's a quarterback room in Cleveland, and there's a veteran sitting right there with a Super Bowl pedigree, a mountain of expectations, and years of rehab behind him. Deshaun Watson, the starter, at least on paper, the guy whose job by every normal standard is his to lose. And that's the real tension driving this entire story. Not whether Shedeur can throw the ball. He's shown that. The real question is whether he'll ever get the runway to prove it on a stage that actually counts. Some people around the building believe the answer is simple. Deshaun starts. It's his locker room, his experience, his contract, his recovery story. That should be enough to win the job outright, at least to open the season. But there's another version of this story circulating too, one where people close to the team believe that even if Deshaun opens as QB1, it might not stay that way for long. Not because anyone's rooting against him, but because if the offense sputters, if the veteran's body shows its age, the Browns already have a rookie in the building who's shown flashes most young quarterbacks never show in year one. And that creates one of the most fascinating debates in the entire league right now. Who wins the battle and who wins the war? Because those might not be the same answer. There's a growing belief that even if Shedeur doesn't open the season under center, this thing tilts by mid-season, week 5, week 6, somewhere in that window. If opportunity knocks, some people believe Shedeur takes the job and doesn't give it back. But that's where it gets complicated for him personally, because inheriting a job through injury or ineffectiveness isn't the same as winning it outright. If Shedeur wants to actually be the guy in Cleveland, not just a name mentioned in quarterback controversy debates, but the undisputed face of that franchise, some believe he has to make it undeniable, not just good enough to get a shot, undeniable enough that there's no controversy left to talk about. That's the pressure sitting on his shoulders right now. Not just beat out a veteran, bury the conversation entirely. And if you know anything about how Shedeur Sanders has carried himself through every level of football he's ever played, you know that's exactly the kind of challenge he seems to want.
Here coming into it. So this is not a fun throw that you want to be able to make, but Shedeur looks at it over the extended arm, over a linebacker, in between multiple defenders, outstretched hands, and see where that ball is placed, man. That's giving you a haircut, boy. That's chopping people's froze off, dog. That's a frozen rope over the top of over the middle of the field that he was shown that he was able.
Because here's the thing people forget in all the noise about his confidence. Shedeur has never run from pressure. Not in high school, not at Jackson State, not at Colorado, under the brightest spotlight college football has seen in years. Every single environment he's ever stepped into, people questioned whether the hype was real. Every single time, he answered with results that made the noise look premature. Now he's doing it again, on the biggest stage of his life, in a league that doesn't hand out redemption arcs for free. If you're locked in on this story, this is exactly the kind of ride worth being part of. Hit that subscribe button, because this Browns quarterback battle is about to get a lot more interesting, and you don't want to miss where it goes next. So where does this actually go from here? If Shedeur keeps hitting those tight windows in the middle of the field, if his aggression keeps translating from practice reps into real December football, the pressure inside that quarterback room only builds. Every completion into double coverage becomes another data point fans throw into the debate. Every velocity throw under pressure becomes another highlight clip circulating with captions asking why this guy isn't starting yet. And that's the part that makes this bigger than one player. This is about a franchise standing at a crossroads. Stick with an established veteran trying to prove his body can still hold up at the highest level, or lean into a rookie who keeps showing traits that can't be taught. There's no easy answer here, and that's exactly why this story refuses to go away quietly. What we do know is this: the tape doesn't lie, the numbers don't lie, and coaches who've spent decades studying this game keep pointing at the same thing when Shedeur Sanders' name comes up. That middle of the field, that dangerous, unforgiving part of the football where careers get made and broken, is where he looks most comfortable being uncomfortable. Maybe that's the difference between a prospect who fades into camp battle history and one who ends up impossible to keep off the field. Right now, all we can do is watch it play out. Every practice rep, every preseason snap, every decision that coaching staff has to make once real games start counting. Because if the version of Shedeur Sanders we've seen attacking the middle of the field all off-season shows up when it matters most, this conversation about who wins the quarterback battle in Cleveland might not last very long at all. And when that day comes, nobody in that Browns media room is going to be speechless because of controversy anymore. They're going to be speechless because of exactly what he does with a football in his hands.